Commander Lisa Grant stood near the big window of the space station. The station was called Horizon's Edge. It floated in the dark space between stars. Lisa watched a small ship come closer. The ship belonged to the Velrathi people. The Velrathi were aliens. They looked like big cats that walked on two legs. They had soft fur that was silver and blue. Their eyes were large and the color of golden honey. They were very beautiful creatures, but they were also very serious. The Velrathi did not like fun or games. They believed in rules and order. Everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be done the right way. Lisa had worked with many alien species before. She was good at her job. She helped different species understand each other. But today, she felt nervous. She did not know why. The door behind her opened with a soft sound. A young man walked in. His name was Ben Carter. He was the supply officer of the station. His job was to make sure everyone had what they needed. Ben looked worried. He held a small computer tablet in his hands. "Commander," Ben said, "we have a problem." Lisa turned to look at him. "What kind of problem?" "The Velrathi ship is bringing 23 cubs to our station. They are part of a school exchange program. The cubs are very young. In human years, they would be about 3 to 5 years old." Lisa nodded. She knew about this program. Young aliens would come to learn about human culture. Young humans would go to learn about alien cultures. It was a good way to build friendship between species. "That does not sound like a problem," Lisa said. Ben took a deep breath. "The Velrathi adults who were supposed to take care of the cubs cannot stay. There is some kind of emergency on their home planet. They need to leave right away. They want us to watch the cubs until new caretakers can come." Lisa stared at him. "They want us to babysit 23 alien toddlers?" "Yes, Commander, for at least 5 days." Lisa looked back at the window. The Velrathi ship was now very close. She could see it clearly. It was shaped like a silver leaf. Very elegant, very precise. Just like the Velrathi themselves. How hard can it be? Lisa asked herself out loud. She would soon find out. The Velrathi ship docked with the station 1 hour later. Lisa went to the docking bay to meet them. Ben came with her. So did Kelly Morrison, the head nurse of the station. Kelly was a kind woman with gray hair and warm eyes. She had 3 children of her own back on Earth. They were all grown up now. Lisa thought Kelly would be good with the young cubs. The door of the Velrathi ship opened. First came 2 adult Velrathi. They were tall and walked very straight. Their movements were smooth and controlled. They looked like dancers. Behind them came the cubs. Lisa felt her heart become soft when she saw them. The cubs were small and fluffy. Their fur was lighter than the adults. It was almost white with hints of blue. Their ears were big and pointed. The ears moved around to catch every sound. Their eyes were huge and full of wonder. They looked at everything with great curiosity. One small cub saw a light blinking on the wall. He walked over to it and stared at it for a long time. Another cub noticed her own reflection in a shiny metal panel. She touched it with her small paw. When the reflection touched back, she jumped in surprise. Lisa smiled. They were just like human children, full of questions, full of wonder, full of life. One of the adult Velrathi stepped forward. She was taller than the other one. Her name was Matron Sevra. She was in charge of the cubs. "Commander Grant," Sevra said. Her voice was calm and cold. "I must apologize for this situation. The High Council has called us back to Velrath Prime. There is a political matter that needs our attention. We cannot take the cubs with us. The journey would be too dangerous for one so young." "I understand," Lisa said. "We will take good care of them." Sevra looked at Lisa with her golden eyes. There was doubt in them. The cubs require structure. They need routine. They must practice their lessons every day. Meditation in the morning, language studies before lunch, mathematics after lunch, and before bed, they must practice folding their comfort blankets. "Folding blankets?" Lisa asked. "Yes. It is a very important skill for Velrathi children. A properly folded blanket shows discipline. It shows control. It shows that the mind is ordered and calm. Every cub must learn to fold their blanket into a perfect shape. No wrinkles, no uneven edges. Lisa nodded slowly. We will do our best. Sevra did not look convinced, but she had no choice. She gave Lisa a data tablet with all the information about the cubs, their names, their ages, their food needs, their sleep schedules, their lessons. Then Sevra and the other adults said goodbye to the cubs. The cubs stood in a perfect line. They did not cry. They did not wave. They simply bowed their small heads in respect. It was very formal, very controlled. Lisa found it a little sad. After the adult Velrathi left, the cubs stood in their perfect line. They waited for instructions. They were very still, very quiet. Kelly Morrison walked over to them. She bent down so she was at their level. She smiled at them. "Hello, little ones," she said in a soft voice. "My name is Kelly. I'm going to help take care of you while you are here. Would you like to see your rooms?" The cubs looked at each other. They seemed confused. No one had ever spoken to them in such a warm way before. They did not know how to respond. One small cub in the front raised her paw. Her name tag said, Sarah. "Yes, Sarah?" Kelly asked. "Where should we line up?" Sarah asked. Her voice was tiny and serious. Kelly laughed gently. "You do not need to line up, sweetheart. You can just walk with me, like friends." The cubs looked at each other again. This was very strange to them. But slowly they began to follow Kelly. They did not walk in a line. They walked in a small group, close together, like a fluffy cloud of silver and blue. Lisa watched them go. She had a feeling that the next 5 days would be very interesting. She had no idea how right she was. The first day with the Velrathi cubs was quiet. Too quiet. The cubs did exactly what they were told. They sat in rows during meditation time. They studied their lessons without complaint. They ate their food without making any noise. They were perfect little students. But something felt wrong to Kelly Morrison. She had raised 3 children. She knew what young ones were supposed to be like. They were supposed to be loud. They were supposed to ask questions. They were supposed to make messes and laugh and play. These cubs did none of those things. Dr. Nathan Price was the science expert on the station. He studied alien life. He had read everything about the Velrathi people. He came to talk to Kelly on the second day. "The Velrathi are a very old species," Nathan explained. "They have been civilized for over 10,000 years. In that time, they built a culture based on order and discipline. They believe that emotions are messy. They believe that play is a waste of time. Children are taught to control themselves from a very young age." Kelly frowned. "But they are just babies. Little ones need to play. It helps their brains grow." Nathan shrugged. "Different cultures have different ways. The Velrathi way has worked for them for a very long time." Kelly was not convinced. She watched the cubs through the window of the playroom. They sat on the floor in neat rows. Each one had a small blanket in front of them. It was time for their evening blanket folding practice. Kelly went into the room to watch more closely. A young man named Danny Walsh came with her. Danny was only 22 years old. He was the youngest person on the station. He worked in the engine room, but he had volunteered to help with the cubs. He said they reminded him of his little cousins back home. The cubs began their folding practice. Each cub picked up their blanket. They held it by the corners. They brought the corners together. They folded the blanket in half, then in half again, then again. The goal was to make a perfect rectangle. No bumps. No wrinkles. Everything smooth and flat. Most of the cubs did this without any trouble. Their small paws moved with practiced skill. Their faces showed no emotion. They were like tiny robots following a program. But one cub was having trouble. His name was Tivran. He was the smallest cub in the group. His fur was fluffier than the others. His ears were a little too big for his head. He tried to fold his blanket the same way as everyone else. But something went wrong. First, he dropped one corner. When he bent down to pick it up, he dropped another corner. He tried to start over. This time, he got the first fold right, but the second fold was crooked. He tried to fix it, but fixing it made it worse. The blanket became a tangled mess in his small paws. Tivran's eyes grew wide with panic. He pulled at the blanket, trying to straighten it out, but the more he pulled, the more tangled it became. The blanket wrapped around his arm. He shook his arm to get free. The blanket flew up and landed on his head. Now Tivran could not see. He stumbled forward. His foot caught on the edge of the blanket. He fell down. As he fell, the blanket wrapped around him. He rolled once, twice, 3 times. When he stopped rolling, Tivran was completely wrapped up in his blanket. Only his small face poked out from one end. He looked like a fuzzy silver tube. He could not move his arms. He could not move his legs. He was stuck. Tivran lay on the floor, blinking in confusion. He did not understand what had happened. The other cubs stopped their folding. They all turned to look at Tivran. For a moment, nobody moved. According to Velrathi rules, they should ignore him. They should continue their own work. A mistake was shameful. It was not polite to look at someone who had made a mistake. But then something unexpected happened. A small cub named Sarah put down her perfectly folded blanket. She walked over to Tivran. She looked down at him with her big golden eyes. "You look like a food roll," she said. Tivran blinked up at her. "I do?" Sarah nodded. Then she did something that Velrathi cubs were not supposed to do. She laughed. It was a small sound at first, a tiny chirp that escaped from her mouth before she could stop it. But once it was out, she could not take it back. More chirps followed. Soon she was laughing openly, her small body shaking with joy. The other cubs stared at her in shock. Laughing was not allowed during practice time. Laughing was not disciplined. But Sarah's laughter was like a disease. It spread from one cub to another. Soon, 2 more cubs were chirping with laughter, then 5, then 10. Kelly Morrison watched in amazement. She had never heard the cubs laugh before. It was the most beautiful sound she had ever heard. Danny Walsh grinned. "I think they're finally acting like kids." But the best part was still to come. A male cub named Corin looked at Tivran, still wrapped in his blanket. Corin looked at his own blanket, still flat and unfolded in his paws. A strange light appeared in his eyes. It was the light of an idea. Corin dropped his blanket on the floor. He lay down on one edge of it. Then he rolled. Once, twice, 3 times. When he stopped, Corin was also wrapped up in his blanket, just like Tivran. He could not move. He could only wiggle. "I am also a food roll," Corin announced proudly. The cubs exploded with laughter. The sound filled the room like music. It bounced off the walls. It rang through the air. One by one, the other cubs dropped their blankets. One by one, they lay down and rolled. Within minutes, the floor was covered with 23 fuzzy blanket rolls. The cubs wiggled and squirmed and bumped into each other. They chirped and squeaked and laughed. They were having fun, real fun, maybe for the first time in their young lives. Danny Walsh looked at Kelly Morrison. Kelly looked at Danny. They both had the same thought. "Should we stop them?" Danny asked. Kelly shook her head slowly. A big smile spread across her face. "No. Let them play." Danny nodded. Then he grabbed a blanket from a storage box. He lay down on the floor. He rolled himself up just like the cubs had done. The cubs saw the giant human blanket roll appear among them. They screamed with delight. They wiggled over to Danny as fast as they could. They poked him with their small paws. They climbed on top of him. They used him as a pillow. Kelly watched the scene before her. The serious, disciplined Velrathi cubs had become regular children. They were messy. They were loud. They were happy. Dr. Nathan Price appeared at the door. His mouth fell open when he saw what was happening. "What in the galaxy is going on here?" he asked. "Play," Kelly said simply. "This is what play looks like." Nathan shook his head. "Their handlers are going to be very upset. This is completely against Velrothi child development rules." "Maybe their rules need to change," Kelly said. She stepped into the room. She picked up a blanket. The cubs watched her with excited eyes. Kelly winked at them. Then she wrapped the blanket around her shoulders like a cape. "Who wants to be a space hero?" she called out. The cubs unwrapped themselves as fast as they could. They grabbed their blankets and put them on like capes. They ran around the room with their arms out, pretending to fly through space. Tivran, the small cub who had started it all, ran past Kelly with the biggest smile on his face. "Look at me," he shouted. "I am flying." Kelly felt tears in her eyes, happy tears. This was what childhood was supposed to be. The next few hours were the most chaotic and wonderful hours the station had ever seen. The cubs played games they had never played before. They built forts with their blankets. They had pillow fights. They made up songs and danced in circles. And through it all, they laughed. They laughed until their bellies hurt. They laughed until they fell down from tiredness. They laughed until they fell asleep in a big pile on the floor, their blankets tangled together, their small bodies pressed close for warmth. Kelly covered them with extra blankets. She turned down the lights. She stood in the doorway and watched them sleep. "Sleep well, little ones," she whispered. "Tomorrow, we play some more." She did not know that someone very important was coming to the station, someone who would not be happy about what she had done. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Tonight, the cubs dreamed happy dreams, and that was enough. The third day on the station started with chaos. Beautiful, wonderful chaos. The cubs woke up tangled together in their pile of blankets. At first, they did not know where they were. They looked around with confused eyes. Then they remembered. They remembered the playing. They remembered the laughing. They remembered the fun. Small smiles appeared on their faces. Sarah sat up and stretched her arms. Her blanket was still wrapped around her shoulders like a cape. She did not take it off. She liked how it felt. "What do we do now?" she asked. Tivran, the small cub who had accidentally rolled himself into a blanket the night before, jumped to his feet. His fear was gone. His shyness was gone. Something had changed inside him. "We play more!" he shouted. The other cubs cheered. They had never cheered before. Cheering was not disciplined. But it felt good. It felt right. Kelly Morrison came into the room with breakfast. She carried a big tray of fruit and warm bread. The cubs usually ate in silence, sitting in perfect rows. But today, Kelly had a different idea. "Today we will have a picnic," she announced. "Everyone grab a blanket and spread it on the floor. We will eat together like friends." The cubs had never had a picnic before. They did not know what it was. But they trusted Kelly now. She had shown them how to play. She had not gotten angry when they made a mess. She had laughed with them instead of scolding them. The cubs spread their blankets on the floor in a big circle. They sat down and waited for their food. Kelly gave each cub a plate. Then something magical happened. The cubs started talking. At first, it was just whispers. Velrothi cubs were not supposed to talk during meals. But one cub asked another to pass the bread. Another cub said the fruit was sweet. Soon, they were all talking at once. They talked about their favorite colors. They talked about their dreams. They talked about their families back home. Corin, the cub who had been the second one to roll himself in a blanket, told a joke. It was a simple joke about a bird and a fish. It was not very funny by human standards. But the cubs laughed anyway. They laughed because laughing felt good. They laughed because they could. Danny Walsh joined them for breakfast. He sat in the circle with the cubs. He told them about Earth. He told them about the blue oceans and the green forests. He told them about snow and rain and sunshine. The cubs listened with wide eyes. They had never heard of such things. "On Earth," Danny said, Children play outside every day. They run in the grass. They climb trees. They splash in puddles when it rains. They build snowmen when it snows. What is a snowman? Tivran asked. Danny thought for a moment. Then he grabbed some bread rolls from the tray. He stacked 3 of them on top of each other, smallest on top. This is a snowman, he said. On Earth, when it snows, the ground is covered with white, fluffy stuff called snow. Children roll the snow into big balls. They stack the balls to make a person's shape. Then they give it a face and a hat. It is very fun. The cubs stared at the bread roll snowman. Then Sarah grabbed some fruit and added it to the stack to make eyes and a mouth. The other cubs clapped their paws in delight. "We made a food man," Sarah announced proudly. Kelly watched from the doorway. Her heart was full of warmth. These cubs were learning so fast. Not lessons from books, but lessons about life. Lessons about joy. After breakfast, Kelly had another surprise for the cubs. She took them to a room they had never seen before. It was the station's garden room. Plants from Earth grew there under special lights. There were flowers of every color. There were vegetables in neat rows. There was even a small tree in the corner. The cubs froze when they entered. They had never seen so much green in one place. Velrath Prime was a desert world. Plants were rare and precious. To see so many in one room was like a dream. "You can touch them," Kelly said gently. "You can smell them. Just be careful not to break them." The cubs moved forward slowly. Sarah reached out a paw and touched a flower petal. It was soft like fur, but different. She bent down and smelled it. Her eyes went wide. "It smells beautiful," she gasped. Soon all the cubs were exploring the garden. They touched every plant they could reach. They smelled every flower. They tasted the vegetables that Kelly said were safe to eat. They discovered that carrots were crunchy, and tomatoes were juicy, and lettuce made a funny sound when you bit it. Tivran found a caterpillar on one of the leaves. He called the other cubs over to see. They all gathered around the tiny creature. It moved slowly along the leaf, eating as it went. "What is it?" Tivran asked. "It is a caterpillar," Kelly explained. "One day it will change. It will grow wings and become a butterfly, a beautiful flying insect." The cubs could not believe it. A creature could change into something completely different? It seemed like magic. "Can we change too?" Sarah asked. Kelly smiled. "In a way, yes. You are changing right now, not on the outside, but on the inside. You are learning new things. You are feeling new feelings. You are becoming who you are meant to be." The cubs thought about this for a long time. That afternoon, Commander Lisa Grant came to check on the cubs. She had been busy with station duties for the past 2 days. She had heard reports from Kelly and Danny about what was happening, but she wanted to see for herself. What she found surprised her. The cubs were in the recreation room, but they were not sitting in rows. They were not studying or meditating. They were building. Using blankets, pillows, and cushions from all over the room, the cubs had created a giant fort. It had walls and tunnels and secret rooms. Small, furry faces poked out from openings everywhere. Chirping laughter echoed from inside. In the center of the fort, Danny Walsh sat with 5 cubs on his lap. He was teaching them a clapping game. The cubs tried to copy his movements. Their small paws did not always hit the right spots. But they did not care. They tried again and again, laughing at their mistakes instead of being ashamed of them. Lisa felt something warm grow in her chest. This was right. This was how children should be. She walked over to Kelly, who was watching from the corner. "You have done something amazing here," Lisa said. Kelly shook her head. "I did not do anything. They did this themselves. All I did was give them permission. Permission to play. Permission to fail. Permission to be young." "The Velrathi are not going to be happy about this," Lisa said. "Their whole culture is built on discipline and control. What we are doing goes against everything they believe." "I know," Kelly said. But look at those cubs, Commander. Really look at them. Lisa looked. She saw Tivran, the shy little cub who had been afraid of making mistakes. He was now standing on top of the blanket fort, arms raised high, declaring himself the king of the castle. The other cubs cheered for him. He beamed with pride. She saw Sarah leading a group of cubs in a made-up dance. The dance had no rules. The cubs just moved however they wanted. Some spun in circles, some jumped up and down, some wiggled their ears in funny ways. They were all doing something different, and it was all wonderful. She saw Corin trying to teach a smaller cub how to make a paper airplane. Danny had shown him how earlier. The airplane did not fly very well. It crashed into a wall, but instead of giving up, Corin picked it up and tried again. They are learning, Lisa said softly. Not facts or numbers, but something more important. Yes, Kelly agreed. They are learning how to be happy. A message came over the station speakers. The voice was Ben Carter's. Commander Grant, please report to the docking bay. A Velrothi ship is arriving. It is Ambassador Vethran. She is coming to inspect the cubs. Lisa felt her stomach drop. Ambassador Vethran was one of the most important Velrothi in the galaxy. She was known for being strict and serious. She believed in the old ways. She would not approve of what they had done. This is not going to be good, Lisa said. Kelly put a hand on her shoulder. Then we will have to show her the truth. We will have to make her see what we see. Lisa nodded slowly. All right, keep the cubs playing. I will go meet the ambassador. She walked toward the door. Then she stopped and looked back at the cubs one more time. Tivran had fallen off his castle. Instead of crying, he was laughing. His friends helped him up and crowned him king again. Lisa smiled. Whatever happened next, these cubs had learned something precious. No one could take that away from them. She squared her shoulders and headed to the docking bay. It was time to face the storm. Ambassador Vethran was the tallest Velrothi that Lisa had ever seen. She stood 7 feet high. Her fur was perfectly groomed, not a single hair out of place. Her golden eyes were cold and sharp like knives. She walked with perfect posture. Every step she took was measured and controlled. Behind her walked 2 guards. They were also tall and serious. They carried no weapons that Lisa could see, but their eyes said they were dangerous. Commander Grant, Vethran said. Her voice was like ice. I have come to collect the cubs and inspect their progress. I trust they have been following the development schedule? Lisa kept her face calm. She had faced angry aliens before. She had faced pirates and criminals and diplomats who wanted to start wars. But something about Vethran made her nervous. Ambassador, welcome to Horizon's Edge. The cubs have been well cared for. They are healthy and safe. That is not what I asked, Vethran said. I asked about the development schedule. Have they been meditating? Have they been studying? Have they been practicing their blanket folding? Lisa chose her words carefully. The cubs have been learning many things. Perhaps you would like to see them yourself? Vethran nodded once. Yes, take me to them. Now. Lisa led the ambassador through the station. Ben Carter and Dr. Nathan Price walked behind them. They both looked worried. They knew what Vethran was about to see. The sounds reached them before they reached the room. Laughter, shouting, singing, sounds that Velrothi cubs were never supposed to make. Vethran's ears went flat against her head. This was a sign of anger in Velrothi culture. Her golden eyes narrowed. What is that noise? She demanded. Lisa did not answer. She opened the door to the recreation room. Ambassador Vethran froze. The room was a disaster. Blankets and pillows were everywhere. A giant fort stood in one corner made of cushions and sheets. Paper airplanes littered the floor. Drawings covered the walls, colorful pictures made by small paws using human crayons. In the middle of it all were the cubs. They were not sitting in rows. They were not meditating. They were not folding blankets. They were playing, Some cubs were playing chase, running in circles and laughing. Others were building towers with blocks, then knocking them down and starting again. A group in the corner was playing pretend, acting out a story about space explorers and alien monsters. Kelly Morrison sat on the floor with 3 female cubs. She was braiding ribbons into their fur. The cubs were chatting happily, telling Kelly about their families and their dreams. Danny Walsh was in the fort with Tivran and 5 other cubs. They were playing a game with cards. When someone made a mistake, they all laughed together. No one was ashamed. No one was punished. Vethran stared at the scene. Her face showed no emotion, but her tail twitched back and forth. This was a very bad sign. "What?" Vethran said slowly. "Is the meaning of this?" The room went quiet. The cubs heard the ambassador's voice. They turned to look at her. Many of them had never seen an adult Velrothi so angry. They shrank back in fear. Tivran looked like he wanted to disappear. All his new confidence vanished. He was the small, scared cub again. Vethran stepped into the room. Her guards followed her. "These cubs were sent here for cultural exchange," Vethran said. Her voice was hard and cold. "They were supposed to learn about human organization, human efficiency, human technology. Instead, I find them behaving like wild animals." Lisa stepped forward. "Ambassador, please let me explain." "Explain?" Vethran turned to face her. "Explain how you have destroyed 3 days of proper development? Explain how you have allowed these cubs to forget everything they have learned? Look at them. They cannot even stand in a proper line." It was true. The cubs were huddled in a group, pressed close together. They were holding paws and blankets. They were scared, but they were together. They were not alone. Kelly Morrison stood up slowly. She walked forward until she was face to face with the ambassador. "With respect, Ambassador," Kelly said, "I have a different view." Vethran looked down at the human woman. "You? A common nurse? You dare to have views about Velrothi child development?" "I am not just a nurse," Kelly said calmly. "I am a mother. I have raised 3 children. I have watched them grow from babies to adults. I know what children need." "And what is that?" "Play," Kelly said simply. "Children need to play. They need to laugh. They need to make mistakes and learn from them. They need to feel joy." Vethran made a sound of disgust. "Joy is a distraction. Play is a waste of time. Our methods have built a great civilization. 10,000 years of order and discipline." "And in those 10,000 years," Lisa said, stepping forward to stand beside Kelly, "how many Velrothi artists have you produced? How many inventors? How many dreamers who saw the world differently?" The question hit Vethran like a slap. Her ears flicked back. She did not answer. "Humans have a saying," Lisa continued. "We say that play is the work of childhood. When children play, they learn to solve problems. They learn to work together. They learn to fail and try again. They learn to imagine new things." "Pretty words," Vethran said. "But words do not build empires." "No," Lisa agreed, "but they build people. Good people, strong people. People who are not afraid to fail." She pointed to Tivran, who was still hiding in the group of cubs. That little cub was terrified when he arrived here. He was afraid of making even one small mistake. His hands shook when he tried to fold his blanket, and when he failed, he did not know what to do. His whole world fell apart. Vethran said nothing. "But now look at him," Lisa said. 3 days ago, he accidentally rolled himself into a blanket. It was an accident, a mistake. According to your ways, he should have been ashamed. He should have felt like a failure." "He should have," Vethran agreed coldly. "But instead, something different happened. The other cubs laughed, not at him. With him, they thought it was funny. And you know what? Tivran thought it was funny too. He learned that mistakes are not the end of the world. He learned that sometimes mistakes can be the beginning of something wonderful." Kelly spoke next. Yesterday, that same cub declared himself king of the blanket fort. He stood tall and proud. He was not afraid. He was happy. Can you say that about any Velrathi cub raised in the old ways? Vethrin was silent for a long moment. Her tail had stopped twitching. Her ears were no longer flat. Something was changing in her face. You speak of happiness, Vethrin said slowly, as if it matters. It matters more than anything, Kelly said. A happy child becomes a healthy adult. A child who is allowed to play becomes an adult who knows how to create. A child who is allowed to fail becomes an adult who is not afraid to try new things. Our way has worked for thousands of years, Vethrin said, but her voice was less certain now. Has it? Lisa asked. Or has it just survived? There is a difference between living and surviving, Ambassador. Your cubs have been surviving, following rules, avoiding mistakes, never stepping out of line. She gestured to the room around them. But for the past 3 days, they have been living, really living, for the first time in their young lives. Ambassador Vethrin looked at the cubs, really looked at them. She saw their tangled fur. She saw their messy blankets. She saw the drawings on the walls and the toys on the floor. But she also saw something else. She saw cubs holding paws. She saw cubs protecting each other from her anger. She saw cubs who, even in their fear, had not abandoned each other. And she remembered something. Something from long ago. Something she had forgotten. Her own childhood. Before the training began. Before the discipline started. There had been a moment, just a brief moment, when she had laughed, when she had played, when she had been happy. Then it was taken away. She was told it was wrong. She was taught to be cold and controlled. She was molded into the perfect Velrathi. But she had never forgotten that moment of joy, even after all these years. Commander Grant, Vethrin said quietly, I would like to observe the cubs for one more day, before I make any decisions. Lisa nodded slowly. Of course, Ambassador. You are welcome to stay. Vethrin turned back to the cubs. They were still huddled together, watching her with scared eyes. Continue, she said stiffly, with whatever you were doing. The cubs did not move. They were too afraid. Then Tivran did something very brave. He stepped away from the group. He walked toward the ambassador. He stopped right in front of her. Would you like to play with us? He asked in a tiny voice. Every adult in the room held their breath. Vethrin looked down at the small cub. He was so little, so brave, so full of hope. I do not know how to play, she admitted. Tivran smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. That is okay, he said. We can teach you. Nobody expected what happened next. Ambassador Vethrin stood frozen for a long moment. She looked down at tiny Tivran. The small cub held out his paw to her. He was offering to teach the most powerful Velrathi in the sector how to play. The guards behind Vethrin shifted nervously. This was wrong. This was not proper behavior. A cub should never approach an ambassador without permission. A cub should never touch an ambassador at all. But Vethrin did not scold Tivran. She did not call the guards. Instead, she did something that shocked everyone in the room. She bent down. Slowly, stiffly, she lowered herself until she was at Tivran's level. Her long robes spread around her on the messy floor. Her perfect fur touched the scattered blankets. Show me, she said quietly. Tivran's smile grew bigger. He took the ambassador's large paw in his tiny one. He led her to the blanket fort. First, Tivran said, you have to go inside. You have to crawl. Vethrin looked at the small opening of the fort. It was made for cubs, not for tall adults. She would have to get on her hands and knees. She would have to crawl through tunnels of blankets and pillows. It was undignified. It was messy. It was completely against everything she had been taught. She crawled inside anyway. The other cubs watched with wide eyes. They could not believe what they were seeing. An ambassador was inside their fort. An ambassador was playing with them. Sarah was the first to move. She grabbed her blanket cape and ran to the fort. She crawled inside after Vethran. Other cubs followed. Soon the fort was full of chirping laughter and rustling blankets. Kelly Morrison wiped tears from her eyes. She was watching something beautiful, something that had never happened before in Velrothi history. Lisa Grant stood beside her. She was smiling too. "I think the ambassador is learning something," Lisa said. "We all are," Kelly replied. From inside the fort, they could hear Vethran's voice. It sounded different now, softer, less cold. "So I just sit here?" the ambassador asked. "Yes," Tivran said. "This is the throne room. You can be the queen if you want." "The queen?" "The queen of the Blanket Kingdom. It is a very important job. You have to protect the kingdom from monsters." "What monsters?" "The tickle monsters," Sarah shouted. And then Ambassador Vethran, the most respected diplomat in the Velrothi Empire, was attacked by 23 giggling cubs who tickled her with their small paws. Her guards moved toward the fort in alarm. Lisa held up her hand to stop them. "Wait," she said. "Listen." From inside the fort came a sound. It was rusty and uncertain at first. It came in short bursts, like someone was learning how to make it. But it grew stronger and clearer with each passing moment. Vethran was laughing. It was a real laugh, not a polite chuckle, not a diplomatic smile. A real, honest laugh that came from deep inside her. A laugh that she had probably not made since she was a cub herself. The guards stared at each other in disbelief. They had served the ambassador for many years. They had never heard her laugh before. The playing continued for hours. Vethran learned how to build towers with blocks. She learned how to throw paper airplanes. She learned how to play clapping games and singing games and running games. She was not very good at any of them. She was stiff and awkward and kept forgetting the rules. But she kept trying, and the cubs cheered for her every time she failed. They told her it was okay. They told her to try again. They showed her that mistakes were not the end of the world. When evening came, the cubs were tired. They had played all day. Their fur was messy. Their blankets were tangled. They gathered in a big pile on the floor, just like they had done every night since the humans taught them how to be happy. Vethran sat among them. Her perfect robes were wrinkled and dusty. Her groomed fur was sticking up in all directions. She looked completely different from the cold ambassador who had arrived that morning. She looked alive. Tivran crawled into her lap. He curled up in a ball and closed his eyes. "You are warm," he mumbled sleepily. Vethran looked down at the small cub. Her golden eyes were soft now. The coldness was gone. "Thank you," she whispered, "for teaching me." Tivran yawned. "You are welcome." Then he fell asleep. One by one, the other cubs joined him. They piled around Vethran like she was the center of a nest. Some used her as a pillow. Others tucked themselves under her arms. They trusted her completely. They were not afraid of her anymore. Vethran sat very still. She did not want to wake them. She looked up at the humans who were watching from the doorway. "I was wrong," she said quietly. "About everything." Lisa walked over and sat down beside her. "What do you mean?" "Our ways," Vethran said. "We thought we were building strong children, disciplined children, but we were building scared children, children who are afraid to fail, children who do not know how to be happy." She stroked Tivran's fluffy head gently. "I had forgotten what it felt like," she continued. "To laugh, to play, to feel joy without guilt. I was taught that these things were weaknesses. I believed it for so long." "And now?" Kelly asked, sitting on her other side. "Now I see the truth. Your way is not weak. Your way is strong in a different manner. Your children learn to fall down and get back up. They learn to make mistakes and laugh at themselves. They learned to love each other without rules and rituals. She looked at the pile of sleeping cubs around her. Look at them. They are together. They are not competing. They are not judging. They are just being together. We lost this somewhere in our 10,000 years of civilization. We forgot how to simply be. The next morning, Ambassador Vethrin made a decision that changed history. She contacted the Velrathi High Council. She told them what she had seen. She told them what she had learned. She told them that the humans had discovered something that the Velrathi had lost. The council was not happy at first. They argued and debated for many hours, but Vethrin showed them videos. She showed them cubs laughing and playing. She showed them Tivrin standing tall and proud. She showed them cubs who were not afraid. 3 months later, the Galactic Concord received an official request from the Velrathi Empire. They wanted to start a new program, a joint education program between Velrathi and humans. They wanted human teachers to come to Velrath Prime. They wanted to learn the art of play. Commander Lisa Grant was chosen to lead the program. She stood on the docking bay of Horizon's Edge, watching the first transport of cubs arrive. More cubs were coming to learn, more opportunities to change the future. Ambassador Vethrin stood beside her. They had become friends over the past 3 months. Strange friends, perhaps, a human and a Velrathi, but real friends. "Are you ready for this?" Lisa asked. Vethrin watched the cubs step off the transport. They walked in perfect rows. Their faces were blank. Their movements were controlled. But not for long. "Yes," Vethrin said. "I am ready to watch them roll themselves in blankets." Lisa laughed. "That might be the best thing you have ever said." Down in the arrival area, the new cubs met the old cubs. Tivron was there, waiting for them. He was no longer the smallest or the shyest. He had grown in the past 3 months. He stood straight and tall, not because he was trained to, but because he was confident. He walked up to the new cubs. They stared at him with confused eyes. "Welcome," Tivran said. "I'm going to teach you something important." "What is it?" a new cub asked nervously. Tivran smiled. It was a big, warm smile, the kind of smile that Velrathi cubs were not supposed to have. "How to play," he said. Then he grabbed a blanket from a nearby table. He lay down on one edge, and he rolled. The new cubs watched him become a fuzzy blanket roll. They did not understand. They had never seen anything like it. But then Sarah did it too, and Corin, and all the other cubs who had learned from the humans. The floor was covered with giggling blanket rolls. The new cubs stared in shock. Some of them looked scared. Some of them looked confused. But one small cub, a tiny girl with light silver fur, started to smile. She picked up a blanket. She looked at it. She looked at the other cubs rolling on the floor. Then she rolled too. Her laughter filled the room. And one by one, the other new cubs joined in. Kelly Morrison watched from the observation deck above. Danny Walsh stood beside her, grinning from ear to ear. "There they go again," Danny said. Kelly nodded, tears in her eyes. Yes, there they go. She thought about how this had all started. A small cub trying to fold a blanket. An accident. A mistake. A moment that could have been shameful became something wonderful instead. Because sometimes the best things in life happen when things go wrong. Sometimes failing is the first step to flying. And sometimes the most important lesson is not how to fold a blanket, but how to roll yourself inside it and laugh. The cubs had tried to fold their blankets. They had rolled themselves inside them instead, and that had changed the galaxy forever. On the observation deck, Lisa Grant put her arm around Kelly's shoulders. "You know," Lisa said, "I think this is the most important thing humanity has ever taught another species." "What's that?" Kelly asked. Lisa smiled as she watched the cubs playing below. "How to be young," she said. "How to be free. How to be happy." Down in the recreation room, 20 new cubs were learning to laugh. 20 new hearts were opening to joy. 20 new lives were beginning to change. And somewhere in the middle of all those blanket rolls, Tivran stood up and raised his arms to the sky. "I am the king of blankets!" he shouted happily. Everyone cheered, and the future looked bright.